U.S. stocks rallied on Friday after the December jobs report showed hiring rose more than expected, but that wage growth slowed, both allaying investors' fears of a recession and tamping down worries about future interest rate hikes. The Dow rose more than 2%, the S&P 500 gained more than 2.25%, while the Nasdaq jumped more than 2.5%. The U.S. Labor Department's non-farm payrolls report showed that 223,000 jobs were added last month, but lower than expected wage gains were welcomed by those seeking signs of slowing inflation. Kitu Sharma, founder and investment manager at Alpha's Future, said it was the best sign yet that the Fed's plan to tame inflation without triggering a recession might work.
We definitely had a very good jobs report. We not only have a strong labor market, wage growth is less than expected, although I think it's still kind of high. So it's not that we are seeing much decline in inflation concerns, but on a relative basis, wage growth has come in lower than expected, and that is raising the odds of a soft landing, if there are any.
As for individual stocks, Costco jumped more than 7% after the membership-only retailer reported strong December sales growth. Shares of Pfizer rose 2.5% after reports of talks with China to secure a license that will allow domestic drug makers to manufacture and distribute a generic version of its COVID-19 antiviral drug Paxlovid in China. Megacap tech stocks including Apple and Amazon posted big gains on Friday after a rocky week, but shares of Bed Bath & Beyond continued their downward slide, falling 22.5% to close at just $1.31 a share, after Reuters reported that the home goods retailer was preparing to seek bankruptcy protection in the coming weeks.
Lawmakers remained locked in a 4-day cycle of consecutive votes for U.S. House Speaker Friday, as top Republican Kevin McCarthy failed to rally a majority 13 times in a row.
No member-elect having received the majority of the votes cast, a speaker has not been elected.
By Friday afternoon, McCarthy was slowly gaining supporters, flipping several of the 20 hardline holdouts to his side.
Cloud. McCarthy.
But 6 fellow Republicans still voted against him, leaving McCarthy just 3 votes short of winning the Speaker's gavel. The party's weaker-than-expected gains in November midterm elections left them with a narrow 10-seat majority, giving outsized power to Republicans like Matt Gaetz, who oppose McCarthy's leadership.
Mr. McCarthy doesn't have the votes today. He will not have the votes tomorrow, and he will not have the votes next week, next month, next year.
The position would give McCarthy authority to block Biden's legislative agenda, force votes for Republican priorities, and move forward with investigations of Biden, his administration, and his family. To sway opponents, McCarthy offered significant concessions, including a rule change that would allow a single lawmaker to call for a vote to remove the Speaker, according to a source involved in the talks. Such a change would give hardliners extraordinary leverage to challenge McCarthy's authority at any time. Meanwhile, all 212 Democrats consistently voted for Hakeem Jeffries.
Hakeem Jeffries was not just prepared to lead, but committed to preserving this democracy and enhancing this august body.
After the 13th vote failed to produce a speaker, the Republican majority did unite on a vote to adjourn until late Friday evening, winning out over Democrats who pushed to continue the session.
Today is a ceremony to honor heroes of January 6th.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Friday commemorated the 2-year anniversary of the deadly January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. On that day, supporters of former President Donald Trump attacked police, broke through barricades, and entered the seat of Congress in a failed effort to prevent congressional certification of Biden's 2020 election victory. 5 people died in the ensuing riot after Trump, in his waning days as president, delivered a speech near the White House urging his supporters to march on the Capitol. But as Biden seeks to commemorate the day, others have sought to downplay it. Trump and his allies in the Republican Party have, since the riot, called efforts to investigate the attack and prosecute rioters part of a partisan witch hunt.
If the faith is broken, so is our democracy. Donald Trump broke that faith.
A select House committee series of public hearings into the attack laid the blame for the violence on Donald Trump and his false claims of election fraud, and in a referral asked the Justice Department to open a criminal probe into whether the former president committed insurrection against the United States. But that committee's work ended after Republicans took control of the House of Representatives.
On that day, more than 140 law enforcement officials suffered physical injuries, and untold numbers are suffering from psychological toll of that day as well.
Biden on Friday appeared determined to ensure the memory of the attack endures. He honored those he called heroes from law enforcement, politics, and civil service for their contributions to democracy that day and beyond. The Presidential Citizens Medal was given to 14 individuals, some of them posthumously.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration on Friday approved an experimental Alzheimer's drug that aims to clear a toxic protein from the brain linked to the mind-wasting illness. Developed by Eisai and Biogen, the drug is called lecanemab and will be marketed under the brand Leqembi. It is intended for patients in the early stages of Alzheimer's, in the hopes it can remove sticky clumps of what's called beta amyloid from the brain. Thomas Wisniewski is the director of the Alzheimer's Research Center at NYU Langone.
Amyloid beta is a protein that accumulates in Alzheimer's disease, and it specifically forms aggregates, and those aggregates are toxic to neurons, that is, brain cells, and it causes neuronal dysfunction and death that correlates with the cognitive symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, the dementia.
Nearly all previous experimental drugs following the same approach have so far failed. An Eisai trial found that the drug slowed the rate of cognitive decline in patients with early Alzheimer's by 27% compared to a placebo, but nearly 13% of patients treated with Leqembi in the trial had brain swelling.
This form of therapy is not without risks, but in the presented data, it looks like the risks are greatly outweighed by the potential benefits, but nevertheless the treatment would need to be closely monitored with a clinician who's familiar with this type of therapeutic approach.
Eisai said the drug would launch at an annual price of $26,500. Leqembi was approved under the FDA's accelerated review process, an expedited pathway that speeds access to a drug based on its impact on underlying disease-related biomarkers believed to predict a clinical benefit.
Inside this box is the body of Kenyan LGBTQ activist Edwin Chaloba. Motorbike taxi riders alerted police after they saw the metal box dumped by the roadside from a vehicle with a concealed license plate. Police say a suspect has now been arrested in connection to the death. Chaloba's remains were found on Tuesday in Uasin Gishu County, where he ran his fashion business. Onlookers watched as authorities moved the body. His sister, Melvin Faith, spoke to local media.
He told me this would be the greatest year for him. I did not know that he was going to get killed. I am really shocked. For those people who did it, I pray for justice. I am appealing to the government to investigate this. He was a boy with dreams. He used to encourage us every now and then. He was our only son, and now we have lost him.
Chaloba's death drew condemnation from several human rights groups, including the International Commission of Jurists Kenya section, which called for a quick investigation and punishment for those behind his murder. Research suggests acceptance of the LGBTQ community is gradually increasing in Kenya, but it remains a taboo subject for many Kenyans. Under a British colonial-era law, gay sex in Kenya is punishable by 14 years in prison. It's rarely enforced, but discrimination is still common.